We are live yet again.
I have written down that this is the 83rd day of quarantine for us, which means we may have done 80 of these episodes. Like, I can't imagine being a newscaster, and this is your job. Every day you go in and you're briefed on news, and you have to play this character, and you have to go over all this stuff, and maybe for a lot of them, don't have an opinion, but then others do have an opinion. It just feels like, man.
You know, the worst part about being a newscaster guy is the way you are forced to talk in the fake voice.
Yeah.
Luckily, it seems like once you reach a certain level of newscaster, all the high-end people on CNN and Fox News and MSNBC speak normally. They speak like a normal human speaks.
You talking about the local news?
Local news, and I've seen one guy maybe on CNN, and they talk like this. Today, with the pandemic on the horizon, worries flare as the protests continue. It's like no human in any part of this world speaks like that on a normal, any part of society. Like it's very strange that, especially local news, everyone speaks like that.
Reports are coming in that coronavirus is on the rise. Take it to us, Lee.
That's right, Patrick. I'm happy to be here outside in the middle of the pandemic, but also protesting with these fine Americans. Back to you, Patrick.
Well, why don't we pull up a clip from today, or should we go to the numbers?
We could go to the numbers, Patrick. Let's look right here.
Are you the weatherman now?
Can we do the entire show like this?
I don't know if I have it in me.
No, I've lost the will to live already. We have now surpassed 7 million cases and 400,000 deaths. And then in the United States, let's go back up to the top here. We have passed 2 million cases now in just the United States. And then death numbers, I have one clip that was saying that New York and New Jersey was doing really well. I mean, here we have a very low day. I mean, still 706 deaths. But
it's Sunday, Lee. So
I know. You can't count it.
It means nothing. It's going to be above all of those last
It'll be
peaks.
one of these on Monday. Well, you want to play the first clip?
Which one would that be?
I mean, we didn't put numbers on
This
these.
one's interesting. I keep reading about Arizona having a big spike, but the problem is all these news stories are like a big spike in cases, and you're like, well, does that just mean it's more testing? Well, this one says that Arizona is about to hit the capacity of their ICU beds.
Really?
Yes, so that doesn't sound...
The entire state?
Well, this one specific hospital, the largest hospital in Phoenix, maybe?
Okay.
Returning stronger or returning too soon? More evidence that Arizona's COVID-19 numbers are going in the wrong direction, coming from the state's largest healthcare provider. All of this comes as we mark the loss of more than 1,000 lives to the virus and a new high for reported cases of the...
Like, this guy's not talking like any human would ever speak. If you were like, pass the butter, honey. I would like to put some on my biscuits for dinner. Really?
Well,
would you like me to pass the water as well?
This is why he's still at ABC 15 Arizona and not in the big leagues.
Why? And is it 104 degrees there? Is that what that means?
And apparently the virus is doing pretty well in the heat.
State's 24,000 plus cases, nearly 1,600 were confirmed yesterday, the end of a record week of reporting. That spike now putting pressure on our local hospital system. Banner Health, the state's largest healthcare system, now saying their intensive care units are approaching 100% capacity. And Banner's top doc is urging Arizonans to take action now to prevent overwhelming the hospitals in the weeks to come. ABC 15 investigator Melissa Blasius has...
So I didn't go to her. I feel like we got the gist of it. So, not looking good in Arizona.
So, they didn't explain any details, like...
They may have, but I filmed that clip literally 2 minutes ago before I ran down here, so... But the next clip's kind of interesting.
Okay.
Now to the other big story we're following for you this weekend, COVID-19 in Arizona. Tonight, state health leaders telling us they've made a mistake in reporting how much room hospitals have to treat patients. We wrote the story. The Arizona Department of Health Services acknowledging they've been over-reporting the number of hospital beds available. They say that's because of confusion about the hospital's licensed bed capacity and surge capacity. They've since made changes to reporting data. So when fixing the numbers, the report revealed more than 1,200 COVID-19 patients in the hospital, taking up about a third of our ICU beds. Banner Health, though, our state's largest healthcare provider, says their ICUs are just about full. Doctors say they've seen triple the amount of people needing ventilators because of the virus. For now, they've been able to use the state's coronavirus surge line to transfer patients and make sure no hospital becomes overloaded.
So it's kind of good news, but they still reference the Banner Health facility, that they are still at 100%. And the previous video just said that that is the largest healthcare provider for Arizona. So if we have anyone from that state, it'd be interesting to know, is that the hospital system that you would use? Is that throughout the entire state? Is that just, Phoenix or something? But I thought it was kind of ironic that, these numbers have been reported wrong and now they're having to revise their numbers in terms of ICU beds. It's not like they're way off on maybe the overall cases, but.
I know we're probably getting a little off topic here, or, our topics are going to be all over the place. But first, let me see. Brad Fogel says...
You have to read this in the newscaster's voice.
Brad Fogel says, keep this up until the quarantine curfew is over. Thank you, Brad Fogel, for the super chat.
I wish I could have some cheesy joke to say right after that.
When does the curfew end for us? Is it at the end of June? June 28th?
I don't know. I mean, today marked a pretty monumental day for us.
That's true.
I went out and had a pizza in public. Now, granted, we were still nowhere near anybody else, but normally I would get the pizza, I would go pick it up and bring it back to the house. Mm-hmm. But today, everyone in this house, all four of us, sat outside, watched the sunset, and ate pizza out in public.
At a local restaurant here. And there was, at one point, there was another table with a family also outside that was incredibly dangerous, but I think we survived it.
But did you see all the people up there at the plaza?
I mean, it's
Is
still...
it normally like that? Because I go to the plaza like twice a week, and it's usually to get takeout. And I feel like a week ago or a couple days ago, there was definitely way more people. And I think I said 5% of people had masks on.
Yeah.
Tonight felt very similar to that.
Yeah. There's more people up there. I mean, because the restaurants they're now allowed to open up with seating, minimal seating.
But that's what's kind of interesting is the second the restaurants have been able to open up, even with limited seating. You've been talking about this the whole time. What do you do when you have to go to a restaurant and wear a mask? Nobody's going to do that.
Yeah.
Well, once they said restaurants are open, what happened? Everyone just ditched the masks. It's like, oh, restaurants are open, no masks.
What's the point of wearing a mask if you're not near someone? I mean, I know you like to hike in the woods with a mask on and drive your car with a mask on, but I don't see the
I always
purpose.
have the mask. Today I walked out without a mask, and I felt like I should have the mask, only because I don't know who I'm going to run into, and there's been people in this community who aren't respecting the 6 feet, and they just come up to you. The mask is like the passive-aggressive way, just to like put it on and be like, hey man, get away from me. So I feel like people should still have masks. I mean, you don't know who you're going to come in contact with. You're still going to deal with the waiters and stuff. I feel like maybe that's the time you should use the mask. I don't know. Obviously, we didn't use it tonight, but...
Let's see here. So like I was saying, this is going to be a slight change of topic here. We're going to be all over the place tonight. This is about the 14-day quarantine if you fly into the United Kingdom. And apparently, maybe this hasn't yet gone into effect, but that may be because flights in and out were just banned recently. So I think flights within the EU and within Europe, are they in the EU now? Has that happened yet?
Britain's not, no.
Okay. But they're allowing flights in, but they're going to have a 14-day mandatory quarantine. But the airlines are angry because they're saying this 14-day quarantine is actually more strict than your population if they actually have COVID-19. You see what I'm saying? It's
I don't
like
know if I follow.
if somebody in the UK has COVID-19, they do not have laws on like what that person should do or has to do. But if
Everything's lifted. They're able to walk around and
maybe so. They just give them suggestions like, hey, you shouldn't go out, you should wear a mask. But these airline companies are saying you are making it worse for healthy people to fly into the UK who don't even have the virus than you are for locals that do have the virus. And they're upset because it's going to stifle business.
New quarantine rules for passengers entering the UK come into force tomorrow as 3 airlines begin a legal challenge to them. The system will require most people to self-isolate for 14 days. Well, our business correspondent Katie Austin is here in the studio. What is the basis for the airlines taking the legal action?
Well, ever since the prospect was first raised of a quarantine on people arriving into the UK, the aviation and travel sectors have voiced concerns that it would put people off travelling and would cost thousands of jobs. This legal challenge is by 3 airlines, British Airways, EasyJet and Ryanair, and they have written to the government outlining why they think these measures are unjustified. One of the arguments, they say, is that actually the quarantine is more stringent than the guidelines applied to people who actually have COVID-19. But this legal challenge is at its very earliest stage at the moment. There is no way it's going to stop the quarantine coming into force in just under 2 hours now at midnight. And also there has been further criticism today from the company which operates the Channel Tunnel. Its boss has written to the Prime Minister, in fact, saying there was only limited consultation on this process and that the situation that's resulted is going to put a vital supply link, well, it's going to make it very inefficient, he says, put that supply link at risk. Now, the government has stuck to its guns and said the quarantine is the right thing to be doing. It's backed by the science. It's necessary to prevent a second wave, but the quarantine is due to be reviewed in 3 weeks' time.
So I found that somewhat humorous.
I don't know, and it kind of like Walmart. Walmart here requires that you wear a mask, yet are you supposed to have masks out and everyone's just not wearing the masks? Or like here in Palmas, nobody had masks on, but I just got barbecue a day or 2 ago and everyone there had masks. Everyone in Walmart has masks. Most people driving in their car in Humacao have masks, which is a little weird. But I don't know, what is the actual law? Are we supposed to be social distancing and wearing masks, but we're now allowed out before 7 o'clock? Is that the law?
I don't know. I think the last I looked, it did say something like you were allowed to go outside to exercise, but you had to wear a mask.
I think
And then
we're supposed
other
to
than
still wear
that, you're
masks.
not even supposed to be outside. It's like to get food, exercise, and go to the bank. It was like those are the only medicine or something. Brazil hides COVID data.
Brazil has removed months of COVID-19 data from the government's health website as criticism mounts over the president's handling of the outbreak. Brazil's leader claims disease totals were not representative of the country's current situation. The health minister will now only report cases and deaths in 24-hour periods. Critics call the move an attempt to hide the true toll of the pandemic. Brazil has the world's second highest number of active coronavirus cases.
Could you imagine if our president did that? Said, I'm not going to let you see the trends. And I don't even know what this means. Like, we are able
they weren't very clear.
Can we pull up the trends from Brazil? Like, obviously, we probably can. Do you think they're going to disappear if their health officials aren't releasing the numbers? But it seems strange to say, like, we're only going to tell you the last day's numbers.
I mean, Brazil is number 2 up here with 695,000 cases. 36,000 dead. I mean, they might be the 3rd highest in the world.
Did I say this like...
Yeah, 3rd highest.
Did I say this like a couple days ago? I can't even remember, but... Oh, because you just changed it by total deaths. It looked like Russia, whatever we were on, was that new cases? Russia has suddenly jumped into the charts. Maybe they've been there for a while and we just haven't paid attention, but I remember Russia being like China. Everyone was saying, we don't believe China's numbers. And I was like, what's happening with Russia? Like, no news is coming out in Russia.
Yeah.
And now suddenly Russia is in the top
yeah, it's
3.
weird. I mean, Russia's number, 467,000 cases, but only 5,800 deaths. When you compare that to the UK, 286,000 cases, so significantly less, and 40,000 deaths. So, like, 5 times the amount of deaths for half the amount of cases.
Take away your little search thing. Russia has 40 what? Deaths per 1 million population? That seems really low.
Yeah.
And then what about cases per 1 million? Their number seems kind of high there. They're doing 3,200 tests. No, wait, that's cases. Where's tests?
Test per 1 million.
They have like the highest number of tests. So what does that mean? Does that mean they're lying about their tests, or they're not hit that bad, but they are testing a lot of people?
So I'm searching by tests per a 1 million population.
And they're like the #1 country if you take away all these little, I mean, Lithuania is a real country, but.
What, Patrick? Do you have something derogatory to say about these fine countries?
I'm just saying most of these places, like, they're tiny little islands. I mean, even Iceland's very small. Luxembourg, Bermuda, Lithuania. I'm actually have a lot of Lithuanian blood in me.
You have offended me, sir.
But if you look at the big countries, I mean, you have, is it Qatar? Is that how you say that? Qatar?
I thought that was Qatar.
Qatar?
Qatar?
I've heard it says, I heard it as like a college kid as Qatar.
I mean,
I don't know.
I don't know.
I also went to college in Alabama,
heard of
so.
Qatar before.
All I'm trying to say is that Russia is number 18 on this list for number of tests per 1 million population, but many of those countries above them, maybe except for 3 or 4 of them, don't have a really large population to begin with. So it seems that Russia is doing a lot of tests, yet they really don't have that many numbers for as big as Russia is.
All right, let's get back to it here.
So Brazil's hiding their numbers, huh?
Jebus03 says, I'm in Arizona, and it seems fine here. I think they are making it sound worse than it is. Worth noting that most of the places that are getting hit hard with deaths have high elderly populations. Every time we have looked up the high elderly population thing, it's not that much higher. It's like 3 to 5 year difference versus the average citizen.
Even if you didn't go down that road, what if you just said that when the numbers start to spike, it is nursing homes, and maybe those make up a small percentage of the population, but it does represent a large total number of deaths?
No, I mean, I do believe that nursing homes are seeing the biggest problem, but are you telling me there's no nursing homes in Arizona? That just doesn't seem possible.
There's a lot of cutters in here. A lot of cutters in this chat.
Okay. Maybe I am wrong.
Cuttergate.
Cuttergate. Colin Powell criticizes Trump.
I'm very happy with what General Allen said and all the other admirals are saying, and diplomats are saying. We have a constitution, and we have to follow that constitution, and the president's drifted away from it. I'm so proud of what these generals and admirals have done and others have done. But you know, I didn't write a letter because I made my point with respect to Trump's performance some 4 years ago when he was running for office. And when I heard some of the things he was saying, it made it clear that I could not possibly vote for this individual. The first thing that troubled me is the whole birthers movement. And birthers movement had it to do with the fact that the President of the United States, so President Obama, was a black man. That was part of it. And then I was deeply troubled by the way in which he was going around insulting everybody, insulting Gold Star mothers, insulting John McCain, insulting immigrants, and I'm the son of immigrants, insulting anybody who dared to speak against him. And that is dangerous for our democracy. It's dangerous for our country. And I think what we're seeing now, the most massive protest movement I have ever seen in my life, I think this suggests that the country is getting wise to this, and we're not going to put up with it anymore.
This was like the main argument I had with my dad once. I was like, Dad, why do you like Trump so much? He like bullies people and talks bad about people, and you know, he's made fun of people that are Purple Heart recipients and stuff. And I'm like, he's making fun of military leaders, you know? He's talking about McCain's like, you know, I prefer prisoners who don't get caught and stuff. And I'm like, Dad, you're military. Like, don't you look down upon this kind of behavior? And he just kind of passed off, and it was like, he just says it like it is. And I'm like...
My parents are the exact same way. And, you know, what's one thing that's a little strange to me is there's a lot of leaders within the conservative party and movement and everything that I thought everyone had a lot of admiration for. I thought Colin Powell was one of these people. I thought that who's the presidential candidate who recently like completely voted against what the Republicans were doing?
Mitt Romney?
Mitt Romney. Like, everybody really respect. Maybe you don't like him, but you respect him as like an honorable person and stuff. These generals and stuff, and all of these cabinet members, and the FBI leader, and all these people. I thought the Conservative Party really respected all these people, and one by one, they just keep coming out and turning their back on Trump or quitting and saying they can't take this anymore. They don't agree with this anymore.
Who is the head of the FBI?
Is it Comey?
Yeah, James Comey. I mean, Republicans were like, he was involved in getting Clinton impeached back in the day, and like he will stand for this. And then he flip-flopped in a way that like both parties wound up saying like, we hate this guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, like he seemed like a pretty outstanding guy, but you know, he's done a few things that seemed a little sketchy like later, but when you add up the numbers of people, it's kind of crazy to see how many have been looked down upon. We do have a clip of Mitt Romney. Don't know where that one is. Yeah.
Hey, Senator, why is it important for you to be out here today?
We need a voice against racism. We need many voices against racism and against brutality. We need to stand up and say that Black Lives Matter.
So he's marching right outside the White House. I mean, you can see there the Washington Monument in the background. So I'm sure there's more clips of him walking around and being interviewed, but Mitt Romney's gone out there. Like, I wonder, it just feels like a lot of these Republican members are coming, like, didn't George Bush, or maybe it was George Bush's cabinet, many of them, I mean, that's what Colin Powell was, but a lot of them have come out and said, like, we're not going to support Trump. And I don't know, at times I feel like Trump's going to win because there's still such a large amount of Americans that will come out and vote for him. But last election, it felt like the party was divided. And then when he became the nominee and it was him and Hillary, everyone buckled and said, you know what, we're going to support him. We can't have Hillary as the president. But now it's starting to already feel kind of early on that a lot of mainstream Republicans are saying, you know what, we're not going to vote for him. I mean, Colin Powell just said he didn't vote for him the last time.
Yeah, but I remember him coming out and saying that before the election.
I just wonder if many more people are going to come out in this environment, which would be a disaster for the party, you know. My hope is always that they do come out, and I'd love to see somehow Mitt Romney like, I'm going to run, you know. And then I would love to see Bernie Sanders say, you know what, so am I.
That would be great.
I want like, we have to end the two parties in America. That's to me worth protesting. That's the most important thing, I think, in America, is to get rid of the parties. Like, that would change everything. But the way we're voting right now, I just feel like there's no hope, because it's always us versus them, you know?
Yeah. Speaking of honorable people, here's a clip of Dana White from the UFC.
Big UFC last night. I didn't even know.
Yeah, so I watched at least the highlights. I watched the
Did you see
the last fight.
What's guy starts with a C? The knockout right at the bell.
Oh, don't wreck it for me.
Oh, you haven't seen I would have thought that's the main fight you saw.
No, I saw the Nunes fight. That was the main event.
Okay.
And then I saw the highlight of the Sugar Sean O'Malley fight. That was crazy. But yeah.
How do I know the outcome of a fight before you?
I totally forgot about the one that you're mentioning right now, so I got to go watch it. But anyway, at the press conference, I think John Jones, he's like the greatest fighter of all time. He's basically said he's relinquishing his light heavyweight belt.
Did Conor McGregor announce retirement last night?
Conor McGregor says he's retired for the third time. George Masvidal has asked to be released as well from his contract. George Masvidal signed a new contract just a few months ago.
Before or after the BFM belt or whatever, BMF belt?
Either right before or right after. I think it was right around that time.
Okay. Why does everyone want to be out of the UFC?
Is
there commitments?
They're upset that Dana won't give them more money. And so they asked Dana White his opinion of all of this and why is this happening. And and I think one of the arguments is like the UFC only pays their fighters like 15% of their income or something, whereas other sports might be closer to 50%. I'm not sure. But here is Dana White's reaction, which is very interesting, especially from a COVID-19 stance.
And then so you want me to tell you why this is going on right now? Well, I love you. You know I love you, but that is a really stupid question.
No, it's not.
It's such a stupid question.
You know what you're talking.
We're in a pandemic, and the world is going crazy right now, and all these guys are like, well, I want more money.
I like, too, that who BT Sports bleeps out every F word, but they miss a big one coming up.
I want more money. But let me tell you what's going to happen. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. I'm predicting the future here. Most of the media in this country is going to get laid off in the next several months. And that's going to be a big, and everybody wants more money. And nobody wants to get laid off. And all these crazy things are going on in this world right now. Nothing is normal right now. Everything is crazy. And I am the only guy that is pulling off sporting events right now. Right.
I get that,
but you're asking me a question. I don't know. I can't tell you what's going to happen in the next month with my business. I don't know. I don't give a fuck. Right. I'm doing what I can do to keep the bus on the highway here, the train on the tracks, or whatever you want to call it. I don't give a fuck. If people don't want to fight, you don't have to fight. If you're afraid of COVID-19, stay home. If you're, whatever your deal is, you don't have to do it. I couldn't explain to you anything that's going on planet Earth right now, and neither can anybody else.
I mean, if I was a fighter, maybe I'd take a stance right now. If that's what they're standing up against, they're saying we're not getting paid enough. I would say, you know what? Right now, everyone's bleeding, everyone's struggling. The UFC is one of the few sporting events out there. I don't really want to fight with no audience. Now would be the time to band together and see if we could renegotiate something. I mean, if you have a contract, though, you have a contract. Are you able to do much there?
That's what Dana said, I think earlier in this press conference, which I just don't understand. And it's very frustrating to me as a fan because all I hear about are these fighters that are unhappy with their pay and they always want more. And it's like, oh, well, I was happy with my pay here, but now I want to go up to heavyweight, so I want more money for that fight. I'm like, just put that in your next contract.
Yeah.
And if you...
But maybe they are just never even entertaining those numbers.
But why would you sign a contract that you're not going to be happy with in 3 months from now?
Yeah, that's strange. Do you know what the pay-per-view numbers have been in the last event or two? Is this the greatest time to fight for the UFC because every sports fan is now flocking to the UFC because it's the only thing? Or is everything a disaster and numbers are down? And
I am just guessing numbers are down. I mean, like you said, you didn't even know there was a UFC pay-per-view last night. I knew about it, but I didn't really care about it. I haven't seen much promotion for it. And maybe it was just the fights, but I don't know. I find the whole thing very frustrating just from a business standpoint. The whole point of having these multi-fight deals is that you come up with something that's fair for both parties, and then we don't need to argue again until the contract ends after I do 5 fights or whatever, and they're just never satisfied.
Do you think it's hard for these big fighters to put together a fight? Is it there's so
I've
much
always
loopholes?
wondered that.
Why can Conor McGregor not just be like, Jose, I'm going to fight you, and we're going to do it on our own terms.
Yeah.
We'll go to some place that we can do it. We put up some money to get a ring and stuff, and then we're going a cage, and then we're going to put it on Xfinity or ESPN or whatever.
Yeah.
And we will take in 70% of the money. We'll spend 30% of it on promotion and getting the event together? Or is there so much red tape and bureaucracy and fight commissions that you would never be able to pull that off? Because some of these fighters are big enough now to where you would think...
Conor McGregor especially.
Maybe the fear is Conor would just say, I took the 2 big fights from the 2 guys that are able to do this with me, and now there's no more market. Where the UFC is very good at playing these drama shows where somebody works their way up and without everybody available to do that, maybe it would be very difficult to set up your own fights.
Jay Miller says South Park predicted the 2020 election, a giant turd versus a turd sandwich. That was a good episode. Keep up the good work, Lee.
That giant
not
douche.
Patrick. Maximilian says, I went to a restaurant outside area today in Germany, and it was about 80% seated. Masks only required for using the bathroom and the waiters. That seems to be the standard rules here as well. Although at our pizza place, the owners were not wearing masks. They didn't care. Let's see what is next. India.
Figures which show an alarming spike once again in daily cases. India now has 2,46,628 coronavirus cases, according to the latest data from the Union Health Ministry this morning. It has now crossed the COVID-19 tally of Spain, which makes India now the 5th in the world in terms of coronavirus cases after the US, Brazil, Russia, and the United Kingdom. Now, 9,971 cases have been reported in just the last 24 hours, so just under 10,000 cases in a 24-hour period, which is the biggest single-day spike.
It wasn't too long ago that we were wondering, like, what's going on with India? India has this huge population. They haven't been hit that hard. Did they say in this that they are now in the top 5 number of cases or number of deaths?
Let's look at the numbers.
Yeah, get off Qatar. We don't need to see them.
Total cases.
So India's number 6.
Number 6 at 257,000. UK is at 286,000. All right, next up.
So they've jumped Italy.
What the heck is this?
I am confident.
Oh. You titled this Ivanka Weighs In, and I'm like, she's fighting?
She's ready. She's fighting.
That even if your path is different from the one you imagined, ultimately it can be better than we.
Dude, this is already freaking me out. What is this? Why is she talking like that? Why does she look
She sounds
insane?
like, what is the name of that process that people do when you like talk into the different microphones?
ASMR or something like that?
You listen and crunch ice in
Yes.
your mouth, and then you come on this side of the microphone.
What is this? What is this for?
This was a big story today. People were outraged.
All right, let's go back to the beginning.
I am confident that even if your path is different from the one you imagined, ultimately it can be better than we could ever have planned. In my own life, I found that my greatest personal growth has arisen from times of discomfort and uncertainty that one can only really appreciate in hindsight. Joseph Campbell, a philosopher who also helped inspire the creation of Star Wars, once said, "The achievement of the hero is one that he is ready for. It's really a manifestation of his character. The landscape and conditions of the environment match the readiness of the hero. The adventure that he's ready for is the one that he gets."
What is she talking about right now?
Maybe she's about to tell you.
Throughout our history, brave men and women have faced daunting challenges, and they have embraced the adventure. America's fate is never dictated by fear. Our future is written by the love and the courage of our citizens. No person will be unchanged from living through this present hardship, but I'm confident that the bonds between us will be stronger. Our admiration for each other will be deeper. Our gratitude for the gift of life will be ever new, and our resolve to build an even brighter future will be greater than ever before.
Doesn't this seem like CGI or something?
Yes, this is like some NVIDIA computer-generated human who's just saying words, but they don't mean anything. Literally, what is she talking? Is she talking about the pandemic right now? What does that mean?
Yeah, I think she's just talking about America banding together. So apparently this was a commencement speech that she recorded a month ago for a college or multiple college. You know, all these people are coming out with these commencement speeches. But it was released today, which I think a lot of people are saying, they're not reading it in context maybe, but they're just like upset because given all of the racial divide in this country, that you have this person talking like a robot who is the daughter of our president who everyone already hates. It just feels like the timing might be off, but even if the timing was right, isn't that very strange video? Somebody says it looks like an ISIS war camp video, like prisoner. I'm doing great, Father.
Dude, that was just a bunch of words. That, you know who would have presented that speech really well is Pence, Mike Pence. He could have said those words and people would be like, okay.
I feel like that's like a speech you're given before you get on a ride. It's like Disney World.
Right. It's like we all
astronauts.
go on this adventure together. Are we all going to make it? I don't know. But I guarantee the bonds that we all make will be stronger in the end. Godspeed, everyone. And then
But
you
to
get
be,
on the ride.
To be kind of fair, isn't that what most I haven't watched any of these commencement speeches that, like, is it Barack Obama and Beyonce and like all these people have been doing them, right?
Okay.
I haven't watched them, but like, aren't all of them ever kind of like that? Like, the one that I really liked was, who's the guy who, I mean, obviously Steve Jobs did one that was really great. But then Levine, what's the guy that was in the documentary with Dr. Dre? The music producer that did like...
Jimmy
Levine. He had a pretty good one as well.
I don't know that I saw that one.
Just talking about like how he started with nothing and he was able to work his way up in the music industry and become a cajillionaire along with his buddy Dr. Dre. But they're all kind of like that. Like, we will band together and now is the time to start your journey in life because you're leaving college.
I mean, it makes a little bit more sense if it's college related, but if that was like Black Lives Matter or COVID related, that made no sense. Here's some good news for New York and New Jersey.
Another positive sign on the road to recovery from coronavirus. Both New York and New Jersey reporting some of the lowest 24-hour death tolls since the crisis began. New York reporting 35 new deaths, New Jersey 60, both numbers down. And New York's recovery actually moving faster than expected. So Governor Cuomo loosening some restrictions on gatherings and houses of worship. So churches, temples, mosques, other religious buildings are going to be allowed to operate with 25% of usual capacity once the region they're in reaches phase 2 of reopening.
So that's some definite good news for New York. I've also seen some clips about them adding more. I don't exactly know how much they've stopped or slowed down the subway system, but I saw some other clip that I didn't add in today's video, but they were talking about opening up more trains and their cleaning process, and they've got the stickers on the ground for social distancing to get onto the
Are they still using the
subways.
UVC? You know,
They didn't show that.
No.
But maybe they are. I don't know. But it just makes me think New York subway system has always been so disgusting. And and they said something like every station will be cleaned twice daily. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I know many of them have literally not been cleaned in decades. You can literally see trash, you know, on the walls with dates on them. From decades ago.
Outside the carts, the trains.
Yeah, the trains are cleaned.
Yeah.
But she said the stations would be cleaned twice daily.
Well, you remember, I know you remember this, I got pickpocketed in, not Barcelona, but Madrid.
Yeah.
And you actually filmed me. We were walking out of the subway, first time in Spain ever. You're filming me, and I like notice I have my wallet missing on camera. And you see the face of dread, thinking I'm in another country and I've lost everything.
Yeah.
Well, somebody mailed me my wallet back like 4 or 5 years later.
Yeah.
I get a note in the office and it's like, come get your package. And I open it, it's my wallet from Spain. And I can't remember what was in there. Like, there was no money in there, but like everything else was in there, my ID and everything. And I think what happened was, I know when I got pickpocketed. I remember being in the subway and some kid bumping into me, and I was like, that bump was a distraction. And they pickpocketed me at that moment. But I think what they did is took the cash out and then just threw it. As soon as I got off the train, they just threw it on the tracks. And so even in Barcelona, it took them 5 years. Because if they threw it in the trash, it would have gone to a dump and no one would have ever found it.
I never thought about that.
So even Barcelona or Madrid, even these other countries, they're not cleaning their subways that often. Here's what I thought.
I don't know. I've been to some. Like, the subway system in Britain is nice, in London.
Like Singapore, like some of those subways are beautiful.
In DC, it's pretty.
I've never been on DC's subway.
It's really nice.
Yeah?
Yeah, really nice. New York City is like a joke. It's disgusting.
Well, what I was thinking, driving around here in Puerto Rico where our streets are crumbling, it's like you're about to total your car when you hit a pothole. I was like, why for the last 83 days have they not just like said, we're going to pave all the roads and make it nice again. It would have been the perfect time to do. I think you were talking about this in New York. You're like, why didn't they take the time to clean all the subways really well? It's the one time to finally do it. Everyone's like staying inside, and you see Times Square and stuff. It's a ghost town.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you're worried about money and income and stuff, now's not the time. But it seems like building our infrastructure would be a top priority in these times. It's like it gets the morale up, and it makes us feel like we're working on self-improvement. I feel like we all missed a opportunity there.
Well, you know, it's kind of like, you know, if I can look to myself, I should have taken the last 90 days and I should have been working out. Like, yeah, I should be able to lift my shirt right now and it just be a chiseled block of stone. But instead, it's filled with nutter butter and regret.
I tried during this quarantine to remove all the hair off of my body of stone, and that wasn't too good of an idea.
Yeah, so you can't really blame these
very true
cities and states. What is this? I see that you have a picture and a video here.
I got the picture because I didn't know there was a video, but this is a freaking crazy story. So Minneapolis is their city council. I guess there's 9 members on the city council. They are pledging to end the police department.
I've been seeing this eradicate or defund the police going around everywhere.
This what? Like a...
It's this movement that's going around everywhere. And it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Well, I mean, Minneapolis, as you'll see, is on its way to actually doing that.
I wish we could somehow create these little like liberal utopias of what, you know, these ultra woke people believe would be a utopia. But we could say like, okay, you have to move to this area over here and we're not gonna have police. We're gonna have tons and tons of regulation. We're gonna make the minimum wage $30. And so anyone who wants
60%,
yeah, well, maybe 80%, you know, and we're going to encourage homeless people. Like you cannot tell people that they can't be hanging around outside or anything. Like the homeless people are going to be everywhere, and just see how long these areas can survive with these crazy ideas that people have.
Well, you know, like Dana White's been saying he's bought Fight Island. We need like Utopia Island. And let's just run. I mean, that seems like a great show. I mean, it probably needs to be longer than a show. You know, you need people to actually work and do stuff. But it seems like a good Netflix special.
Absolutely.
Let them live out there you have to commit 5 years. And we'll see how it works. I mean, why not? You got to be quarantined anyway.
Yeah.
Another missed opportunity.
It's going to be great. I mean, think of all the lives that'll be saved without police.
All right, we're going to get right to it. We have breaking news out of Minneapolis at this hour where Minneapolis City Council members at a rally about an hour ago have announced their plan to disband the Minneapolis Police Department. Andy McDonald was at the community event at Powderhorn Park where they made that announcement. He joins us live. Andy, what do you know?
Hey, thank you, Chris. Well, their main message here was to invest in the community and not the police. About 1,000 people were here at Powderhorn Park, many still present here on this side of the slope as they watched Minneapolis City Council member, a majority of them, vote in favor of removing Minneapolis police and replacing them with community-based public safety. The sign in front of the stage stated their motive to defund police. City Council President Lisa Bender said their efforts to reform have, quote, failed. The officials say they're looking to other ways to maintain public safety in their communities and are starting a conversation on how to move forward together.
Our commitment is to do what's necessary to keep every single member of our community safe and to tell the truth that the Minneapolis police are not doing that. Our commitment is to end our city's toxic relationship with the Minneapolis Police Department, to end policing as we know it, and to recreate systems of public safety that actually keep us safe.
What do you think that would look like?
Well, yeah.
Are they just saying we need to start a new police force? Or
yeah, at least this lady was saying that they were going to have something else in its place. I've seen a lot of videos of protesters with signs that say abolish the police and everything, and then they will interview them and they'll just be like, we don't need police, like police are murdering us. But they have absolutely no plan. It's like they have no idea what the police do on a daily basis.
Is there any, there's got to be, but what countries in the world don't have a police system? It's like this system's not so broken that the most socialist countries and liberal countries in the world don't have police, right? It's like Sweden. Everyone looks at Sweden. Sweden's got a police force, right?
Yeah, we just saw Sweden's police force kicking ass the other day. They were pepper spraying people in the face.
Yeah, it's just strange to just think that like the police are a problem. No other society is keeping their population safe without police. But that's what we want to do.
Well, like I said, at least she seemed to have, I mean, I think it's kind of dumb. She's like, we're going to get rid of the police and then we're going to start a police force, which would end up becoming the exact same. No, she didn't say that.
She said some like local, I don't.
Yeah, it would be the same thing. Like you would give a certain small group of people the power to arrest those who are breaking the law. That's what the police, you can change the name.
Yeah.
But it's just so stupid.
Man, I keep thinking all of the laws that will be passed by Congress in the wake of the coronavirus. We've been talking about that since like the first week or two. But never did we think in a million years we'd have riots and protests all over the country. I surely never thought we will be getting rid of police forces in towns. But it makes me wonder, like, what if this movement starts and it actually takes place? Like, this is tying into the gun argument in America. Like, are people in Minneapolis not going to just start going and buying a ton of guns? And then what happens? You're going to have crazy shootings, and then you're going to start having, like, warfare on the citizens.
It doesn't matter. As long as the police aren't doing it, every other murder's fine. Photog Mike says, we need George Soros to stop buying bricks for Antifa so he can buy tiny homes for all the homeless. That's true. I mean, to be honest, I don't even really know who George Soros is. I only know of him as the guy who, does he own some media company or something? And people say that he's a secret Nazi.
I'd like
he
to
sold
watch
off Jews when he was young or something.
Unbiased documentary on George Soros.
Yeah.
'Cause I don't know enough about him.
But the basic theory is that he's super liberal, right?
Yeah.
So wouldn't he want to buy the tiny homes for the homeless people? Like, what does, or is George Soros supposedly one of these like one world government people?
That's
a
always
globalist.
that's always the narrative that I hear.
Jan Thomas says disbanding the police was the plot of RoboCop.
I don't know that I've ever actually watched RoboCop in its entirety.
So I was very sheltered as a kid, and I never did well with scary movies or anything. Like, I never got to watch R-rated movies or anything.
Because of your own choosing, or because your dad,
no, my
your
parents. My parents wouldn't let me
They saw
watch
that
that
gun
stuff.
pop out, and they were like, "You can't watch that."
Well, I remember in our shop class in middle school, our shop teacher was just the worst teacher ever, and he would just let us watch movies all the time. We literally, I was talking about this today with Isaac when he was over here, but for our shop class, for the entire semester, the only thing that we'd walk away with is a plank of wood with our name drawn in it.
Yeah.
That was the only project. So it was like, we had X amount of, 100 days of class or something, but we really just needed one day to do this. So the other days we would just watch movies, and he let us watch RoboCop one day, and it kind of messed me up.
What?
There's this scene when it's like the cop gets shot 1,000,000 times by all the bad guys, and then, he's dead, and then they are able to keep him alive with the RoboCop skeleton. And it messed me up, man. I was having nightmares about that.
That's why you have so many problems?
I don't know about that. I'm just saying RoboCop was hardcore when I first saw it. Henry McCann says, defunding the police is a slogan. It's reducing their budgets while investing in other programs for mental health, homeless, etc. I would need like an actual plan written out, because it doesn't, that is not what that woman just said. She said she wanted to abolish the police and create a new police system. And like I said, I've talked to other people who I haven't talked to them, but I've seen them online who just act like we don't even need the police. The police are just violent people who hate us, so we don't even need them, which of course is insane. The Missing Link says, America should start its cultural change by introducing mandatory voting. I disagree with that completely. I've thought about going the other way and having like mandatory education before voting. It's like you must prove you know what you're about to vote for before you're allowed to vote. Let's see. So there was this interesting video clip. Can't remember what channel it's on. Maybe we'll see when I start playing this. But it was a news story that was called something like, "Why is the stock market rising in the middle of this economic downturn?" or something like that. And I got a few different interesting clips from this. This clip simply talks about the amount of people in the United States that are invested in the stock market. And you gave some numbers yesterday off the top of your head, and I think they were a little misleading. I think they were a little low. So check this out.
Invested in stocks in the first place. Only 14% of Americans are directly invested in individual stocks.
So that's individual stocks.
That's not like a 401k?
Which might be invested in mutual funds. Okay. So that's what she's about to talk about now.
While 52% have some level of investment.
So, I mean, that's already way more than we thought that we were, than we were talking about yesterday.
I think what I was talking about was the total number, like the entire market is owned by a very small percentage of people. So 52% of Americans, U.S. families, are invested in the stock market.
Yeah.
But imagine if you have a 401k or a Roth IRA or
with $200 in it.
Yeah, well, even $100,000. If you add all of that up, that's still so small compared to, I'm sure the wealthiest people in the world. You take the top. Didn't we look up how many millionaires there were in America, or was it billionaires? It's probably billionaires. Weren't there I can't even remember. Do you remember what that number was? It was like 10,000 billionaires.
No. That's millionaires.
10,000 millionaires?
Yeah, billionaires. Now I got to look it up real quick.
All I'm trying to say is that the billionaires, because I mean, being a millionaire today isn't even a big deal, right? Like for the most part. $1 million, if you were a millionaire today, that was like being a billionaire back in the age of millionaires. Like when you think of Rockefeller and all the people in the early 20s and 30s that were multi-millionaires, they would be billionaires today.
Sure.
So
614.
614 billionaires in the United States.
That's honestly more than I thought.
So those 614 billionaires own like 80% of the stock market. They probably don't own that much. Maybe they own 50%, but then banks and other investment groups own a large portion.
Yeah.
Maybe they own more than the billionaires. But so I think this could be, it's not misleading, it's just the way that you think about it.
Thanks to 401k or retirement accounts. Among those who earn over $100,000, stock ownership is much higher at 88%. So gains
what is this saying?
If you earn over $100,000 a year, 88% of people who do earn over $100,000 a year invest in the stock market.
No, that's a huge number, okay.
Stock market disproportionately benefit wealthy Americans.
So people that make less than $35,000, 20% of them, 1 in 5, have money in the stock market?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have thought that number would be that high at all. I was talking about that in the pool today. I was saying you had some friends over, and I was just saying, I wonder, we've never had a V recovery, right? Every chart we've seen, you try to compare everything to the past, and it's like anytime it crashes below 20%, more than 20%,
yeah.
Market crashes 20 to 50%, it has taken years to recover. And here we are pretty much at a V recovery, which has never happened in the stock market. And I was wondering, could that be because we've never lived in a time when it's been so easy to buy stocks? I mean, you have the internet, you have apps, you can connect your banks to it, you don't need brokers. Gone are the days where people are on the sales floor like sell, sell, sell. Like anyone now can get a Robinhood account and buy a stock, right?
Yeah.
So I was wondering if a lot of the V recovery has to do with just how liquid the market is, how quickly people can buy and sell and get into it. But at the same time, I feel like most Americans that have money, including us that can get money in the market, it's such little money that is that really enough to make the whole market go back and recover that quickly?
Well, that's what this video kind of talks about. And, they were acting like yes, it is enough to make the stock market go up. Just people feeling good about things. This clip here is comparing our current situation to the 2008 financial crisis. And basically what she is saying is that the value of the stock market is a leading indicator of the economy.
Sure.
We're always looking forward to what we believe is going to happen, and then we're pricing the stock market or buying stocks based on that belief of the future.
So how far ahead? Is the market acting crazy because Trump has won the election or lost the election? Or are we a few months before that moment?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, they didn't talk about pricing in Trump's election, but they keep talking about pricing in, like, the economy coming back to life and the fact that vaccines are looking good on the horizon and everything. So this is looking at the 2008 financial crisis.
The financial crisis from 2007 to 2009 helps illustrate how the stock market is a forward-looking indicator. The S&P 500 hit a bottom in March 2009, then rallied more than 60% by the end of that year as investors became more optimistic about the economy. During that same time, the unemployment rate continued to rise, ultimately peaking at 10% in October 2009.
When you go back to March of 2009, when the market eventually bottomed, the news was getting worse. The news wasn't getting incrementally better, but stocks stopped going down. Stocks had efficiently priced in what they thought was worst-case scenario and started looking out to a future that was modestly better.
So,
do you know when it recovered to 60%? How did it went back down, right?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, so it recovered that quickly?
I think so.
But to get back to the top took what? Didn't that take 2 or 3 years?
I thought it was 5 years. Maybe
So that last 40% was the one that took the longest to grow?
I think so. I'll have to go back and look at that. I think the 2001 crash took longer than the 2008 crash to recover to its highs. And then this is another clip from the same video talking about explaining why with certain bad news, stock prices can go up.
Bad news for the economy or the average American can also translate into good news for individual stocks. The share price of Uber, for example, surged 9% in one day in May after the company announced layoffs and cost cuts.
When wages are low, which they've not been doing very well, profits are high. Stock market loves high profits and low wages, but the economy doesn't like low wages. You don't have people to buy your goods and so forth.
I don't understand. Maybe Uber laid off their employees and not their drivers.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense. I mean, because if they're talking about drivers,
I mean, can you lay off your drivers?
I don't know.
Isn't that just an in-demand service?
Yeah, I guess you're right. But if people aren't driving and taking Ubers, then where are the profits coming from? So I don't get that.
I mean, you're saving a lot of money by firing the upper people that are doing all your marketing and running your company, right?
But I thought Uber was never profitable. Am I wrong about that? Has Uber been profitable before? I thought they've been in this growth phase for years, and people have been speculating that they'll never be profitable.
If you can't fire your employees, are they employees or are they subcontractors?
Man, people get pissed when I say this, but they are definitely private contractors. Like, almost every single one of the things that makes you a private contractor, an Uber driver falls under that.
Yeah.
So
I need to find that list that our bookkeeper sent us, because we've brought this up many times about who is a private contractor and who is a full-time employee. And when you look at the 20 things you have to mark down, I mean, I don't know how Uber is. So this video, we probably should have played this back when we were talking about Minneapolis is going to get rid of their police. But this video went really viral today. And then as I was watching it, I realized this isn't a recent video clip like some of the other clips. But I just thought this was kind of interesting because people were sharing this video being like, Don Lemon, he got told,
Yeah.
But this is an older clip, but it's very, very relevant. And I found the original clip and then recorded a little bit more than the viral clip that went throughout Twitter today, but I don't know if you remember this.
Their message is peace and coming together in the country. What's your message?
You don't believe that for 1 minute, do you?
That their message is?
Yeah.
That's what they said to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe them.
Any protests over the deaths of these cops today in Baton Rouge?
I don't know that. I don't know that.
Any riots or protests over the police officers in Dallas, Texas?
What are you asking?
It's a pretty simple question.
I asked you what's your message to the people. Their message is one of peace. What is your message?
My message has been clear from day one 2 years ago. This anti-cop sentiment from this hateful ideology called Black Lives Matter has fueled this rage against the American police officer. I predicted this 2 years ago. So what I want to know,
okay, Sheriff.
do I want to know?
With all due respect, do you know that this was because of that?
Yes, I do.
As a law enforcement officer?
I've been watching this for 2 years. I predicted this. This anti-police rhetoric sweeping the country has turned out some hateful things inside of people that are now playing themselves out on the American police officer. I want to know, with all of the black-on-black violence in the United States of America, by the way, when the tragedies happened in Louisiana and Minnesota, do you know that 21 black people were murdered across the United States? Was there any reporting on that?
There was a black officer who was killed today. But
was there any reporting on that?
Sheriff, please, let's just keep the volume down here. So I understand, and listen,
I'm looking at 3 dead cops this week,
Sheriff,
and I'm looking at 5 last year. You're trying to tell me to keep it down?
Just please, if you'll just please, we can keep it civil. So because the message to people at home, I'm sure you want, is one of civility.
I wish, Don, I wish you had that message of civility
have a conversation
toward this
with you.
hateful ideology, these purveyors of hate.
You don't know what my message is.
That's
what I want
they
to say
do.
to you is
these people preach vile and virtue
in the
name of hate.
And we'll be right back. All I want to do is have a conversation. I can't have a conversation with you if we're both talking at the same time. What it sounds like to me is that you're accusing me of violence and supporting a narrative that I'm not necessarily in support of. And if that's what you're accusing me of violence, then you can leave. That's not true. I don't support violence of any type against police officers, against anyone. So if you're accusing me of that, then you're welcome to leave. But if you want to have a conversation, I am more than willing to welcome a conversation with you. I don't disagree with you about there's a narrative across the country that could be harming police officers. But we don't know right now, as someone who's in law enforcement, if that was the actual cause of it. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this. Do we know that generally the American law enforcement officers are racist? Do we know this?
Go on.
I ask a question.
Do I know American general law enforcement are racist? I don't think anyone is accusing. If you're insinuating that people are accusing or saying that law enforcement across this country as a whole are racist, then your assumption is wrong.
First of all, this whole anti-police rhetoric is based on a lie. There is no data, and you know this. There is no data. There is no research that proves any of that nonsense.
So that was 2 or 3 years ago?
Was this after
No, that was 4 years ago. That was in 2016.
What was this after?
This was after 3 cops were killed and wounded in Baton Rouge. But it was also... Has it already been that many years? This was after all the police shootings, when they're like the sniper in D.C. that Dallas killed a bunch of cops in downtown Dallas. You remember all that? This was like the election year, I believe. Maybe the year before the election, 2015. But that clip was 4 years old, and it was all over social media this morning. They didn't have the very ending of that, but the cop the sheriff, he is a hardcore Republican. He's always on Fox News. But he just asked Don Lemon, do you think these police are racist? And then 4 years ago, Don Lemon was like, no one's saying they're racist. And I'm thinking, man, how much time has changed? But
yeah, I mean, I do want to stick up for the Black Lives Matter movement a little bit. I definitely did not have a positive view of them years ago. I can't remember the case that happened, the hands up, don't shoot case. It was like when I was just reading the facts about what happened with that, and then I was seeing the marching and everything, I was like, it just doesn't show that this was a racist thing. It doesn't show that the police acted out. You know, it seemed like this guy attacked a black police officer and the black police officer defended himself. That's at least the way I understood it. If I'm wrong, feel free to give me a link to other information. But at that time, I just remember thinking like this, it seems like your anger is placed in the wrong place. Or I'm sure there are thousands of injustices per year that are racially based, whatever, like let's march for one of those.
Right.
But that one, I couldn't get behind that one. This one that's happened with George Floyd has been so horrific. And, you know, we've all seen others, like everybody's on the side of this. And I feel like the movement has changed a lot from what it was. I remember 5 or 6 years ago, it was all about like not abolishing the police. It was about killing the police. I mean,
it was like
fry the pigs like bacon and all
Yeah.
that. Like I was watching that all over the news everywhere, and it was much smaller protests, and they were much. Maybe they weren't doing as much violence, but they were calling for the violence. Now, there's such a larger group of people, and for the most part, I think people are a lot more peaceful. But when there's that many people and that many police, there's going to be all this, you know, horrific violence that pops up and everything. But I feel like the movement is a bit more fair than it was 5 or 6 years ago when that police officer was talking about it. Do you agree with that?
The movement is more warranted now than it was back then?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even want to say that. I just feel like the case that we're talking about now, that everybody has joined together and said, like, this is the definition of injustice, we have to stop this. Like, everyone's on board with that, you know? Whereas before, I think there was a debate as to what exactly happened. The facts came out slowly and they changed over time, and so there was a debate. And I think that's what that cop was a little riled up about, I think.
I've been wondering, you know, Minneapolis is saying we're going to get rid of the police force and they're all racist and they're all, you know, suppressing us and everything. I've just wondered, I don't know if it's like the sake of debate, but I've just been wondering, like, what if we could make a police force that was entirely black? Would that solve the problem?
I've thought about that.
If every police officer was a minority in America and there was no white police, white people would freak out, right?
Maybe if it could make people feel like I'm not, as a white person, I'm not afraid of a black cop, you know. So if it was as simple as just snapping my fingers and going like, okay, all police are black now,
I wonder if the Black
I would
Lives
be
Matter
fine with
movement
that.
would be okay with that, because we've seen like the guy who was like thrown in the police or the police van and he broke his neck.
Yeah.
Half of them were black.
Yeah.
There are people of color in this one in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Not the main guy, but like other people are. Like there's always a mixture of black cops in these groups. So I've just wondered, like, if we could just get rid of white cops, can black cops be racist towards their own people if they were in a position where they didn't have to answer to white superiors? I don't know.
Logan says, stop the war on drugs and we should be able to get away with far less police and have less violence all around from every angle. I think there's definitely some truth to that. I just don't know about legalizing all drugs. There's some hardcore drugs out there that, you know, I don't know if you want people doing heroin or crocodile or what. You seen all those documentaries on crocodile?
Is there an argument to be made that if we legalize all drugs, then we take away all medical for those drugs? Like, if drugs are illegal, we can say, like, let's rehabilitate and, like, let's put people in rehab and stuff and help them medically for these drugs that they've gotten addicted to. But if we say, like, you can do whatever you want, it's your body, but the rest of our society is not going to pay for your decisions. Is there any kind of argument that you could be made there, or is that crazy talk?
You're saying for legalizing all drugs?
Yeah.
But, you know, where are the drugs coming from? And then, like, can you just go and just buy Oxycontin at Walmart now? And you can just take it until you die?
Maybe not Walmart, but could you have, like, the weed stores and stuff and just say, like, you can buy whatever you want?
And you can buy some crocodile right here and you'll be dead in a week or two?
I mean, the problem is like, nobody, no matter where you fall on the drug argument, nobody wants people behind cars under the influence of any drug. And I think, I don't know, I haven't read about this in years, but the problem with marijuana was that it was always hard to give a field sobriety test on that drug because it stays in your system really long, and there's not like a simple breathalyzer that you can do for marijuana. Maybe there is now, I don't know. But nobody wants anyone taking drugs that inhibit their ability to operate a vehicle behind the wheel of a car, right? So you need police to at least control that, right? You have to have people that are intoxicated.
No, bro,
taken off our streets.
We don't need the police telling us what to do, man.
Now, the police stopping you for suspicion, probable cause, then searching your car and finding a crack pipe or finding a little bit of weed in your back of your car or something, that does seem so petty to me But then we face the same dilemma that we have with the student loans. Is do we say we're going to decriminalize all that and now we must release every prisoner that's been behind bars?
I think so.
And then also there's the mental health issue there of like, once you're thrown in prison, are you becoming a worse person? Like, are you becoming used to the ways of the prison system?
Yeah.
And in many ways now you are less likely to be able to fit into society? Or is that the right thing to do and we should just release all prisoners that have these petty crimes, which are typically marginalized groups that are arrested for those crimes, and just say, man, anyone that's been caught with weed under an ounce, get them back in society, you know?
Absolutely.
I don't know what the answer is to that, but you know, you could just see we're like, man, if you've been in jail for 20 years for marijuana charges, and then suddenly you're released into the real world, like that's going to present problems for them as well, you know?
Photog Mike says, I'm sure those 19% under 35,000 are invested in market, maybe done so through their job with an IRA, 401k, or not a portfolio of their own. Yeah, absolutely. That's true. Leonardo says, Lee, the real question is, how is Tesla doing? Tesla's around 900, right?
Really?
My short position is not doing well.
The interesting thing with the 401k is I wonder what percentage of people have a 401k with money in it, but they've never taken that next step of actually investing the money. I know I've helped friends and family who have 401ks, and they have cash sitting in their 401k. But
They just needed to do the final step.
They never bought an ETF, they never bought a stock, they never bought a mutual fund. And I think their dollar is just becoming worth less over time due to inflation.
Sure.
But they've never gotten the compound interest, which is, that's the number one thing we should be teaching people in America. You know, we talked about you got to know how to buy a car and how to fix a sink and a toilet, all these things you should learn coming out of high school.
Yep.
You should learn the power of compound interest and the woes of the compound interest on a credit card, you know?
I feel like that was taught to me a million times in high school, but it was just never taught in an exciting way. Well, it's not just that. They just never went far enough. I feel like maybe if you don't do it in high school, you should definitely do it in college. There should be a class where instead of buying, you know, $500 in books, you buy $500 in stocks, and then you have to buy in each different sector, and you have to do your research, and then by the end of the semester, you see how much money you've made or lost. You would learn so much with a class like that, but instead we do calculus. Let's see. Wyatt says, Stanford prison experiments showed that people in power will abuse that power no matter their background. Cops are prone to it. You know, I thought I recently heard someone come out and say that the Stanford prison experiment was, the findings were falsified or something. I'm going to have to look into this.
Stanford prison experiment.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the experiment was. I think it was like taking groups of people and saying like you are in charge of this group of people, and then over time that group of people would become more and more militant against the lesser people. I need to look into it again, but I think I recently heard somebody come out and say that they were told to change the findings for some political reason or something. Photog Mike says, should look into what Portugal did by legalizing drugs and how it changed the country. Yeah, I didn't know Portugal legalized. I wonder what that means, like legalized all drugs or some drugs. I mean, a lot of countries have kind of legalized even hardcore drugs, and you have to go to some state building to get your heroin.
I mean, didn't Seattle do this? I remember in college reading about like the heroin parks and stuff where you could go and just do whatever you want. And then I feel like we went to Seattle and I was like, man, this feels crazy. There's just zombies walking around, and like it was a really weird vibe in some of those places that we went.
Yeah. Messy Hot also says, Portugal has shown that decriminalization all drugs plus treating addiction as social health issue rather than a criminal issue decreases crime all around. Yeah, I've definitely seen similar studies like that. So,
I mean, Amsterdam's taken it even further, and they allow legalized prostitution. You have the red light districts and everything. And
aren't there a lot of countries that have legalized prostitution?
Maybe. I just know that one's very obvious there, but, you know, and then you can smoke pot and stuff in Amsterdam. It's all legalized there.
Cell Judge 32 says, did you see they discontinued live PD and cops? No, I didn't. Is there a political reason why they did that? I've never even heard of live PD, but...
You know, in today's cancel culture, you probably can't run cops and then not have everyone complaining about your show or your channel.
Really?
And then they go to your advertise. It's just like this downward thing. I've had a lot of, especially liberal friends, who just say, you know, I'm not going to support these outings anymore because they support Trump. Or like a big one in the South is Chick-fil-A. Like Chick-fil-A plays Christian instrumental music. I don't know if you've ever noticed that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I can just hear the opening of a Christian song and know, like when you're going through the radio dial and I'm like, that's
yeah,
Christian.
in 2 seconds
It
you hear the...
Oh my gosh, there's a guitar player.
Yeah.
It's like all of it. I've been looking up these certain pedals for my guitar reg, and like every time I go to this one thing, this delay pedal, it's like all Christian people. And I'm like, yeah, you guys use that like over the top stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, Chick-fil-A, they play the Christian music in there, but then they also like give money to they give money to homophobic type groups or groups that do not agree with the LGBTQ groups, whatever. And so people say, I will not eat at Chick-fil-A. But when you start looking into it, I'm like, everyone supports something. Like if you did not go to a business that supported something you were against, there would be no businesses left for you to ever support. Like
Right.
the other day, I think Home Depot was under attack because people said Home Depot gave money to Trump's campaign last time. And people were praising Lowe's. I guess the news story was that Lowe's is giving money to Black Lives Matter and we should shop at Lowe's. And then people found out that Home Depot had given money to Trump. And I was like, I bet if you dug deep enough, I bet you both of those hardware stores have given money to both sides. Like that's typically what happens.
Right, yeah.
If you're a smart business person, you put the money into the pockets of both politicians, and then whoever wins, you're in their favor as well. So I don't know. I always find it strange when like people are not going to support these huge corporations because of something like this.
I think we got one more video clip here.
Efforts to find a coronavirus vaccine are about to take another major step forward.
But the declining levels of cases in some areas could actually hamper those efforts. Dr. Frank McGeorge is here to explain the reasons why.
Yeah, Kim and Devin. So in order to know if a vaccine is actually protecting the people who have been vaccinated, those people need to be exposed to the virus. So remember, researchers cannot deliberately expose participants in clinical trials, so the virus needs to be circulating in the community that they live in. That means...
Wait, what? Everything that we've seen up until this point said that they will be giving people the virus.
I don't think so. The only thing I've seen of that is your website that said you can sign up and get the virus.
No, like we've played many clips interviewing people, and they said, so far you have either been given a placebo or you have been given the vaccine, and they're like, yeah, it's kind of crazy that I could have some vaccine in me, and then they're like, and then next month you were going to be infected with the virus, and they're like, yeah, that's what we have to do.
I think that's just the website. What was that called? 1 second more. Or what was the name of that
One
site?
less day or something like that. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I told my dad about that, and he was saying that no, like normally you have people that have the virus, and then you treat them with the placebo or with the...
That's not how vaccines work. You can't give someone a vaccine after they have it.
Yeah, that is true. Maybe it wasn't with vaccines, but it seems very unethical to give people a virus that has...
the chance of killing them.
Yeah.
I know, but that's literally what all of these news shows that I've played have said. And that's why they interviewed the people.
Why wouldn't you, and I think this article gets into this, why wouldn't you go to a population like Brazil or America that's having a big spike in cases and find people, test them, and you have to test negative, and then you say, we're going to give you a placebo, and we're going to give you an inactive version of the virus that will cause an immune response. It gives you antibodies. That's what a vaccine does. And then we will study you as you go back out into the population. And then we will try to see what percentage of people that got the placebo.
It's just so slow.
But that's the correct way to do it, right? That would be
well, not if people are willing to sign up and do it.
It's always felt crazy to me to think that like you're gonna sign up to be given
I don't know. You wouldn't sign up to be given the flu if you thought you could potentially save a bunch of old people's lives?
I don't know, maybe not.
Really?
I mean, if they told you 30 years ago, 40 years ago, that like everyone's going to get AIDS, so we need to give you this vaccine, and then in a month later, we're going to give you HIV to see if we can beat this.
I don't know.
That would be the most foolish decision you could have made when you'd realize, oh, AIDS is just spread by
Doesn't
sexual...
AIDS have like 100% fatality rate though?
Well, not AIDS, but HIV.
Okay.
We're going to give you the HIV virus because it's a pandemic. This is crazy. We've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, but doesn't HIV have like a 90-something% fatality rate?
I don't know. I mean, you could make any, but we believe that this had a higher fatality rate.
We don't now, though.
That's what I'm saying. Just give it time. What if you give it enough time and you realize, oh, that thing was only around for like 6 months, then we got over it, didn't kill that many people?
So you're saying put the vaccine on hold and just wait?
No, just give people the vaccine and then give it to people that are in high-risk areas already and observe for another. I mean, I think that's why it's going to take 2 years to find this. It's because they can't just give the virus to thousands and thousands and thousands of people.
That's literally the clips that I have shown, is that they are giving it to thousands of people.
I don't know. I mean, the other one was like you signed up for it and you were going to be like a space cadet and like do this for humanity. I thought that was weird when I saw that video clip. Like, who would?
They interviewed people who would do it. We played a clip. We played 4 different clips of 4 different people who said they would willingly get the virus because they're young and they don't think that they're going to die, and it's going to be safer because they're going to be under doctor observation the entire time, and there's a 50% chance they're going to have the vaccine anyway.
Everyone in this comments is saying you can't legally give them the virus. But if you give people an antibody, a vaccine, and then allow them to go on with their day where they probably will come in contact with it, then that is legal. Like, that would be... I just don't know why you need to give them the virus. Like, can't you put it in healthcare workers that are going to come down, are going to be in the presence of the virus, and say, like, all healthcare, like, if you're willing to take an inactive version of the virus. Many people still, the anti-vaxxers, believe you can get the virus by getting an active, deactivated, broken up version of it. I think statistically and scientifically that's very, very rare, if not impossible. But if you choose to say, like, I will sign away and I'll take the inactive vaccine that you think could work, and I'm going to continue on with my day and treat patients with COVID every single day, it's not going to take but a month or so, 2 months before you have enough people to have your test done.
I mean, that's you just making up statistics that you think like the majority of healthcare workers are going to get the virus. Like, you would have no idea.
I'm just saying they would be the highest risk people, or do it in nursing homes. That could be another place you would do it. But to tell like people, I don't know. It just seems crazy to me that you're going to get an active version of the virus. You're going to get...
That's what we saw. You're acting like we didn't watch these clips.
I just only remember the website that said, you sign up and we will give you the virus.
Oh my gosh, now I gotta go find this thing. Let's finish this.
Success of the trials is going to come down to location, location, location.
If you go in and you have dribs and drabs of infection, even though you have 30,000 people in the combination of placebo and experimental, it could take months and months and months and months to get an answer.
Speaking to JAMA Live, Dr. Anthony Fauci said sites are now being prepared to start large phase 3 studies next month of the Moderna vaccine developed at the National Institutes of Health. It's critical to test the vaccine where the virus is spreading.
If you start the phase 3, and then when you're a month or two into it, you happen to get in an area that you've highly vaccinated, where you've had a big outburst of a surge of cases, you could get your answer pretty quickly.
Those trials will be located in the U.S. and other countries as well. Now, starting this month, Brazil will host the next round of testing on the COVID-19 vaccine that's being developed by Oxford University and AstraZeneca. Brazil has the second highest number of cases after the U.S., and the curve there is still rising. Fauci says he remains cautiously optimistic that an effective vaccine can be made.
The majority of people make an immune response which clears the virus, which tells us that if the body is capable of making an immune response to clear the virus and natural infection, that's a pretty good proof of concept to say that you're going to make an immune response in response to a vaccine.
Now, Dr. Fauci said he is concerned about the durability of that immune response, meaning how long it might last. With several other coronaviruses like those that cause the common cold, the length of protection is generally only a year or less. And we still don't know how long any protection, either from recovering from or from a vaccine, might ultimately last. Big problem.
Read some chats or talk. Give me 2 seconds to find this.
Aren't all instrumentals secular? I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, if you don't know what you're listening to, then it can't be Christian, right? But you can't possibly listen to like Amazing Grace instrumental and be like, that's not a religious song. Maybe the idea is that without lyrics, there's no like agenda. Like you can't be indoctrinated. Is that the word?
Yeah. Let's see.
Can you believe these two guys actually live in the same house together? Sometimes I can't believe it myself. I think they are actually injecting the virus. That might be one of the restrictions Trump lifted to get this done quicker. That's a pretty big...
I'm willing to be exposed to coronavirus for the same reason that a lot of the other people on the front lines are willing to take the risk and expose themselves to coronavirus, which is the chance to save lives.
You know, when I think of myself personally, and I think of this time in my life, I want to be doing something useful.
5 months ago, I would be skeptical of the level of risk that we're willing as a society to put on people for some to benefit, but I think a pandemic changes that calculation.
Pandemic diaries, that's kind of like coronavirus journal.
That's a really good idea.
I think they ripped us off a little bit.
This is still your one day sooner. This is what you're bringing up?
It's the only way I knew how to bring it up.
What, the one way you would be correct?
The idea of a challenge
Of course,
trial.
one day sooner is allowing people to be in, like, that's the whole point of this program. I'm talking about normal clinical trials. What is Moderna doing? What is Oxford doing? Like,
Okay. Well, I'm just saying there are thousands of people who are getting infected on purpose.
I'm not doubting that. I still don't know the legality of this. I don't know what's going to happen with lawsuits. I agree that one day sooner, this video clip that you played, people are saying, I will get infected with a virus or a placebo. 50-50 chance. I agree with that.
No, they're going to be infected. They're going to be given a placebo or a vaccine, and they will all be infected with the virus.
Okay. That makes sense. I still don't know how that's legal, and I don't know, maybe that is something that Trump lifted up, but I don't think Moderna and these other companies are doing that. I think they are saying, we can give a test group, a placebo, and a potential vaccine.
Well, it seems to me like...
And then at the end of 2 or 3 months, we will then, like, maybe you have to trace them. Maybe you give them to people that are definitely going to come in contact.
Who are those people?
Healthcare workers. People in the ICU rooms.
No, that would be like giving it to a nurse and saying like, hey, could you please not wear a mask anymore? They're wearing protective equipment so that they don't get infected.
Give it to New Yorkers. I mean, can't you see what the average New Yorker, what percentage of the average population in New York came down with the virus? And then what percentage of the people that we gave the vaccine to came down with it? And if it's like a huge gap, you're going to say, man, it looks like the study we did, 2,000 or 3,000 people we gave the vaccine to didn't come down with the virus, or if they did, it was a much lower rate than the other, standard group that we have. It seems like that's the way.
Yeah, and then all these people come back in and they're doing tests on them, and I'm like, wow, you guys don't have coronavirus, and then you have to wonder to yourself, is it because our vaccine worked, or is it because the virus is dying, or maybe you were really safe and you wore a mask everywhere, and maybe you washed your hands all the time?
That's why you do a large number of people. You can't do like 20 or 100. You have to do thousands of people so that you can eliminate those deviations and those,
I wonder what's more dangerous. Giving thousands of people an untested vaccine.
There's a risk there for sure.
Or giving fewer people untested vaccines, but also infecting them with COVID. I don't know. Anything else you have to talk about today?
Not really. We did, I don't know if you want to get into this, but we did have an interesting conversation earlier about like school and about making money and making hundreds of dollars an hour. Do you feel like entertaining that idea or not really? Leave it for another night?
Maybe we can touch on it real quick. We just started talking in the pool. I was talking about my brother who has just out of the blue started like a handyman business. And he was saying that his goal for each of these handyman jobs is to make between $100 and $200 per hour, which sounds insane to me. Like, who's going to pay you that much money?
It's like being a wedding photographer.
I mean, a wedding photographer could potentially be paid $500 an hour or $1,000 an hour.
On the one day they work or a couple days they work.
But he was saying that because he's honest and he shows up on time, that all of these people that he's working for are just thrilled to hire him, and after he does a good job on one project, they're trying to come up with other things for him to do, and he's doing simple stuff. He might be running some electricity, he might be painting.
Word of mouth is great.
Yeah, and so then we just started talking about, like, you know, I've felt like I've been ripped off by every contractor I've ever hired before, but we were specifically talking about the hot tub repairmen. I'm sure it's like this everywhere in the States, but especially in Charleston, South Carolina, they all have the same kind of scheme going on where they give you an hourly rate of maybe $100 an hour or whatever, but then they have these other fees they don't really talk about. One of them being a fee when they show up. They want the $100 to show up because it's an hour or less. But then they have a diagnostic fee, which might be another $100. So now you're $200 in and they've been there for 30 seconds. Even if whatever's wrong with your hot tub is obvious. And then they might say, oh, your pump needs to be replaced. And okay, the pump will be $800, but the pump really only costs $400. So they double the price of every single thing that is going into your spa, plus they charge $100 an hour, rounded up to the next hour. And basically we just were talking about the fact that, you know, a lot of people are very discouraged that they can't find jobs that pay more than 10 or 15 bucks an hour or whatever. But in many cases, there are jobs all around you that you would have no idea pay well over $100 an hour. And a lot of that is, you know, getting to the point where you have enough customers to fill your day up. If you have 1 hour of work per day, you're not really doing too good. But you were talking about like the lawn care company that you have hired back in Charleston. And
yeah, I have a company or a guy. Everyone has a guy, right? I asked my friends, I asked Nick, I was like, hey, who cuts your yard? And he's like, I got the guy. He's like, great. He shows up all the time. I was like, perfect. I'm never home. I don't live in Charleston anymore, but I need my yard cut. My yard's small. So he gives me the guy's name, and I can watch him on my security cameras, and he shows up with like 3 other workers, and together they knock out this job in like an hour and a half, an hour, and they get paid $200. And I'm thinking he's probably paying his employees, the two or three other guys that come with him, probably paying them like $7 or $10 an hour to do this one job, and they're just knocking out jobs all day, right? But he is probably making $180 himself, and then he's paying the other guys $20 to $28 for the hours, you know? So it seems like he's making over $100 an hour, and he's got the right tools, and he just goes in there and knocks it out. And I'm thinking, man, he's dependable. I can pay him remotely without even having to see him. I'm lucky I have the security camera so I can see that the work's been done. But he will text me pictures. He'll take pictures of everything he did.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, wow, it's such an easy business. Now, that business does need some equipment.
Yeah.
But the handyman thing, there's another guy in Charleston that built our psych wall for us, and he helped us build the studio back in Charleston, and we used him anytime we could. I think he was charging like $35 or $40 an hour, and at the time we were like, man, this guy's really expensive. But he's the only guy I would give the keyless entry code to my house.
Yeah.
And I was like, Chuck will go into my house, and I can 100% be certain he will not mess anything up. He won't steal anything. He'll make sure the door's locked. You know, he'll probably find something else out of place and like fix that, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, Chuck's the best. And so we were just talking about like how so many people feel like there's not jobs out there. and that they can't do anything, and like you can never make $100 an hour, and the minimum wage needs to be $15 an hour. And you start talking about your brother, and it was like he just sits at home on YouTube and watches how to repair every toilet, and how to change a light socket, and how to cut the breaker and do this and that. You know?
He doesn't have any background in this. He literally will go to a house, they'll show him what's wrong, he will watch a YouTube video, and then he will give them a quote, and he'll try to price himself. And he said, you know, sometimes he's wrong, and maybe he will get paid $10 an hour or $20 an hour, but he tries to price himself to make over $100 an hour, and he's doing great. He has no background in this, and so I think some people in the comments think that we are talking bad about the people charging the money, and you know, as a consumer, I have been frustrated at times that I feel like the hot tub guys are kind of scamming me because I've specifically asked how much something will cost, and they will like lie to me. So I'm not advocating that, but I'm just saying that I think a lot of people are so focused on trying to find a job out there rather than just creating a job for themselves. And somebody who was over at the house today was saying that Mike Rowe has mentioned, you know, the guy on Dirty Jobs, has mentioned that at least 25% of the people on the shows who do these horrific jobs that nobody want to do, they're all millionaires.
Really?
Yeah. And Mike Rowe's talked about, I've heard him talk about this before.
I guess if you're climbing in a sewer system every day and cleaning out crap, it's like you're probably paid really, really well for that.
I think he was talking about one guy in some video was a septic tank guy. You know, you got a problem with septic tank, need a new septic tank. This is your guy.
There's scuba guys. I think there was a guy in Charleston.
Oh God.
I think were you telling me this? Like your house was near a sewage plant, treatment plant. And there are people that go down in scuba gear.
I did see one video like that from something. I can't remember if it was in Charleston.
Surely you have a bubble over your face.
Yeah.
Right?
It was like the full.
You can't just have your.
No.
What did we call it? Not a respirator. It's
regulator.
Regulator. In
No,
your
it
mouth.
wasn't that.
Your lips.
Yeah, but he was like, yeah, this guy, he lives in a small town. He's the only guy who's willing to deal with, you know, cleaning up people's crap. But he's a multimillionaire, and he'll come out whenever you need it, and he's not too prideful to get down there and do what needs to be done, but you're going to pay a pretty penny for it. So anyway, I don't know. I thought it was kind of inspiring, just all of us telling stories about like, yeah, did you hear how much this guy makes? And yeah, did you know that the guy doing this makes that much? There's just a lot of opportunity out there, but you might have to make it for yourself rather than, you know, get a job.
You have Don here saying most people that make $100 an hour don't pocket that much. They work for a company, but good for him. And then Keith says here in Australia, you need a license to be a plumber and an electrician. You still need to have a license here in America, but what happens with handyman? If you need to just like fix a plunger on a toilet, or you need to like, my outlet in the wall isn't working. I mean, as a homeowner, you can do those things. I don't know where that line is when you're an outside help doing it.
Yeah, but my brother was saying that he believed that it had something to do with the expense of the job, and once it was over $10,000, then it required a licensed electrician or something. But for small jobs, you could have an unlicensed person doing it.
There's weird laws like that in Charleston where you can't renovate your house for more than 50% of the value of the house, I think, in any given year without having to get a permit.
Yeah.
And so I guess if you lived in the house, you could renovate. It's kind of what I was doing. It's like renovate it slowly over time. But I don't know. I just feel like these stories are kind of encouraging, you know, because I think it is fairly easy to start a business, to do it the right way. And as long as you do, I think the most important thing is you do quality work and you are a good person to deal with, who's honest and open.
That's all that really matters.
Like, you can make $100 an hour easily if you just do it well, you know. And then if you want to then start the next business where you're now employing other responsible people, that's what one guy did that did a lot of the carpentry in my house, like when I had those termites. You know, he just had a bunch of other good guys that he took the call for them. He's like, if anything goes wrong, like, I'm on the hook for this. But I hire really good guys. And I was like, man, I could have Cameron come over and do anything because I know he's going to look out for me, you know?
Yeah.
And so if you can get to that point where you're now not the guy diving into the sewage tanks, but you have 3 other guys that do it, now maybe you double your rates, you know?
Sure.
But I feel like the trades is an area where people don't investigate that enough with work. And also with like Airbnbs and stuff, and so many people owning multiple homes now, like that wasn't a business 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Now you own an Airbnb or a rental property, you need people that can take care of stuff fast. And I feel like we haven't lived in a society like that before. So having a good handyman is a job that's way more in demand than it probably was, you know.
Well, you know a job that I think so many people would probably really enjoy doing, and it needs to be done, is this Airbnb property management.
Yep.
Finding somebody who is honest and reliable. I mean, reliable. They have to be available at a moment's notice if something goes wrong at the house. I mean, David, our employee, is managing my Airbnb, and he said a few months ago the girls called him in a panic because they believed someone was under the house. And he said, I'm pretty sure it's a raccoon, but if you actually believe someone's under the house, you need to call the police. And so they called the police, and the police came, and it was a raccoon. But somebody had to be willing to have stupid calls like that, you know? And somebody, like when the cleaning crew doesn't show up, David is immediately getting in the car and driving over there to do the cleaning himself because the new tenants are coming in 2 hours and somebody has to do it, you know? And so that's another thing. That while my brother is doing the handyman work, he's also managing. I think he's got 3 different properties now in his neighborhood that he's starting to manage. And it just, word spreads like, oh, he's a good guy and he's honest and it's hard to come by.
It's so crazy to me that that's what it boils down to.
Yeah, I know.
Like I have debates with my sister and with Kristen all the time about like how we hire people and stuff. And I'm like, I don't care what their resume is. I don't care they went to college. All I care about is they're personable, they're reliable, and they aren't going to lie and steal, you know? And if they can do that and they have the desire to learn and they have the desire to want to do good, I mean, if you can just have those qualities, maybe having those qualities is harder than I think. But when you surround when you surround yourself with people that have those qualities, I just kind of expect that from most people. But you know, at least in the photography industry, we know lots of lousy people that, you know, I'm never shocked anymore when I hear these stories of business partners that have ripped each other off, or these superstar photographers that have all of these other allegations and stuff behind them. I'm like, yeah, I just feel like there's a lot of bad apples in all these industries. But in my core group of friends, everyone is super reliable and trustworthy, and they all make pretty good money.
Yeah.
And if they lost their job, they would be able to say, you know what, like, I could manage Airbnbs if I needed to.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's something I tell my sister to do if she can't find work.
I mean, it might be difficult with the baby, but it in a way.
I mean, aren't you just showing up to houses alone, or you're showing up when there's problems? But like, I guess showing up to the house with a problem and having a baby could be.
I mean, 99% of the time, all you have to do to manage these properties is to communicate with the potential customers and the current customers.
And the cleaning crew?
And the cleaning crew, but then all the other stuff. Like when the hot tub breaks, David has to call the hot tub repair guy, and then the hot tub repair guy doesn't show up. Now he's got to call another hot tub repair guy. And then the lawn guy didn't show up, or is charging too much. He's got to figure out who else to go. But 99% of the time, it's just answering the same stupid question of like, can I check in early? Can I check in late? Like that's what comes in 3 times every week. But every now and again, something really bad happens and he has to get in the car immediately and go over there. And that's where it could be a little hard if you had a baby. But I think for the average stay-at-home mom, it could probably be a great job to do.
Somebody in here is talking about used to have a friend who would get paid $500. Oh, that's a different story. I had a friend who used to pee on a guy once a week for $500 in college. That's a totally different job. I thought somebody in here was saying that they got paid several $100s to run groceries. And I was like, that's definitely been a job here during the pandemic in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
Because people were like, hey, I don't want to go to Costco, which is in 40 minutes away. If you can run that errand for me, you could make a lot of money. And I was thinking like, I wonder if our neighbors knew that somebody is running that errand one time for 5 people, if they could charge the full rate for 5 people, or if everyone would say, man, you're already running it for 2 of my friends. I'll pay you a lot less because you're doing the same errand. But, you know, it's kind of a weird thing when it's like it's the service, but you're doing the same service for many people. But doing stuff like that, like running groceries and stuff, I just feel like there's ways to make $10 or $15 an hour easily. You just have to have the mindset of coming up with a system, and then you may need a website, you may need references, you may need some investment in tools or something, you know. But if you're making $100 an hour, I don't feel, and especially if you're a homeowner, you may already need some of these tools, you know. Your brother probably owns a lot of the stuff that he needs anyway.
Absolutely. All right, guys, that wraps up the show. That was a strange tangent. Make sure you subscribe. We will...
the market going up tomorrow?
Probably. It always goes up, right?